As a repeat software founder, I have had a lot of missteps picking the right tool stack to run my company. In my first company, UpLaunch, I changed tools so many times and it was an epic freaking waste of time. I would research a tool, I'd buy it, I'd install it, train the team, decide I didn't like it, rip it out, go get a new one over and over again, and it made me feel really busy, but honestly, it kind of makes me sick at how much time I wasted. Now, I knew when I started my next company that I wanted to do things differently. I started Precision about a month ago, and I was committed right from the beginning to just do some research, make the right decision, get the tool installed one time, and call it a day. And so in this video, I'm gonna break down the exact tool stack that I've installed to build my newest software company. Let's get started. When you start a new company, the first thing that you need is a marketing website. Now, historically, I used Webflow for all my website needs. I started in WordPress way back in the day, switched to Webflow in about 2016, 2017, and that's where I started when I was coming out of the gate again until I found Framer. I'm gonna walk you through a couple of things that I love about it. And you see on my screen here, I'm showing a landing page for a workshop that I'm doing. The first thing that I love about Framer, honestly, is that you can edit and publish directly from the desktop app. It makes it feel incredibly fast, like super focused, and I don't know if it really matters or not, but it makes it a lot of fun for me. The thing that I love about the editing experience specifically is that you can edit all three breakpoints, right? You can see if I zoom out, I've got like my full desktop, my smaller desktop and tablet view, and then the mobile view right here. And you can see how it shows up on all three. Flip right into preview mode. You can have this little drop down, check all your different breakpoints, and make sure that it works well. You can hide elements, change elements, all sorts of stuff. It's lightning fast, and then guys, like all I gotta do is go click publish, and just like that, it's live. The site itself is super fast, looks beautiful, animations are really easy, so I was like super impressed by this. Now for every one of these tools that I show you in this video, I'm gonna do a quick show and tell about something that's neat, like the way we use it. The thing for Framer that was interesting, I could design this page, but I wasn't really sure exactly how their forms would work. Sometimes you have to like put third-party code or use a different form tool, and I didn't really want to do that. I wanted to try to keep things simple. So what I was trying to accomplish is to get someone to fill out the form and then have them get enrolled in our email platform and have something get created in our CRM. And so the way that I did this is actually with a webhook. If you're familiar with a webhook, basically what it does is it grabs the information, in this case from a form, it turns it into code, and then it sends it wherever you want, so another software platform, in this case Zapier, can take it, kind of decode it, and use it for some integrations. And so I was able to grab the forms on this landing page, set up this webhook, run this zap, right? So now when you fill out the form, it goes to Zapier with this first step. It goes over to our email platform, which is Bento. I'll get into that in a minute. It's super cool. Creates a subscriber, adds a tag for the workshop, which enrolls them in an email automation, goes over to our CRM, creates the person in the CRM, puts them on a list of webinar registrants, so that way I can market and follow up to them later on, and then sends a channel message in our Slack instance to tell us that we got somebody new for the workshop. All that happens as soon as you click the form in Framer, and it's a done deal, and then it takes you to a thank you page. So I'm pretty happy with it overall. I was able to do all the nerdy little marketing automation stuff I wanted without having to buy extra software or use some fancy webinar tool. So far so good. So once you build a website, you probably want to know like who's coming to it, right? And historically, for years, we all used Google Analytics to figure out how much traffic you have, what are the traffic sources, pages, and bounce rates, and all that kind of stuff. And a little while ago, they released Google Analytics 4, and honestly, it got insanely complicated, huge freaking headache, and I don't know, the internet kind of like mutinied against GA4. Even though it's free, there are other companies that have sprung up that do a better job with analytics. My favorite one is called Fathom. They're super cheap, they're privacy focused, they don't use cookies, they don't sell your data, and honestly, they just give you the information you need. So this is a screenshot of our new Precision website on Fathom, right? I mean, it gives you all the usual stuff you'd expect. Real-time users, people over the past 7 days, views, average time on site, the page breakdown. So like everything you need, but the thing I love about it, I think I mentioned this earlier, it doesn't use cookies, so you don't have to have those like pain in the ass cookie pop-ups all over your website to stay on the right side of whatever weird compliance shit everyone's making you do, right? You can just put this thing on there and it gives you the data you're looking for, and that's about it. I like using these UTM codes to try to figure out like where people are coming from, right? What channels, what campaigns, traffic sources and stuff like that. And so Fathom has this really cool build tool where you can click this and you can just drop in whatever, URL and the different UTM parameters that you want to show, right? Like the source, maybe Facebook or Instagram. The medium could be, organic or paid, whatever your, overall like traffic type is. And then, a campaign, it could be a specific newsletter or an ad, et cetera, et cetera. So you do all this stuff, you can drop it in and it'll spit out the URL with the full UTM code, and then you can copy it and, drop it in your ads or your emails or whatever. So I love this little tool. It's so funny. It's like not even part of the main software. It's just a little JavaScript form, but it's crazy useful. I use it all the time. All right, now we're gonna get to the core of the revenue system here. We need two things in general to run a software company. You need an email marketing platform, some type of automation, and you need a CRM. Now, historically, I've always used HubSpot, and I got no hate for HubSpot. I love them, their product's pretty solid. I almost used them again. They've got startup plans, they give you like 90% off when you're a young company, but those startup plans expire as long as your company doesn't expire, and they start to get expensive over time. And so I really was just curious, like, what else is out there? I wanted to put a little bit of time, because I'll tell you, like, migrating email platforms and migrating CRMs down the road, huge pain in the ass, and something that I really did not want to do. All right, so I got Bento up on the screen, and I was walking through a couple of things that I really appreciate. The first thing is just like this overall philosophy that they have, and their founder, Jesse, writes about this pretty in depth. They're very focused on deliverability. Like, they manually approve all the accounts that sign up to make sure that you're not gonna spam everybody and negatively impact the IP reputation. They batch the emails, like they'll slow them down and send them in batches while the domain's still getting warmed up to maximize your chances of landing in the inbox. Like, they do a lot of cool stuff like that candidly I haven't seen get heavily featured on most of the other email software that's out there. You can see like the UI is pretty user-friendly, got a 46% open rate on my last email send, that's cool. But like for the deliverability stuff, like check this out, you can pull this up. The thing that I really like in this software are the details. Like, it does what they said it would do, and it does a really good job. But I love the details, like, for instance, this is a new site, so we can't gauge your list health yet. Like, a lot of times, if you only have 1 or 2 data points and you're trying to show something on a dashboard, it'll just tell you that you suck until you get enough data in there to actually establish a trend. When I talk about deliverability, like, it actually goes pretty deep. For instance, you can pull up this health check on your account, and it goes through and checks all the different areas that could cause you to end up landing in spam, right? Like all the different domain records that you have to have. It shows you like what your engagement grade is. It actually grades every email to make sure you're getting enough clicks and opens and things like that. It checks to make sure your IP is not blacklisted, and all the different places where they will list the IPs with bad reputations that'll get you landing in promotions or landing in spam. It checks all that stuff all the time, which I absolutely love. So at the end of the day, like, if you're running email marketing of any type, if you can't get in the inbox, it doesn't matter. Your subject line doesn't matter, your email doesn't matter, your deal doesn't matter. Like, nothing matters if you can't land in the inbox, and Bento's super focused on getting you there. The other thing that I love is that they actually do their customer support in Discord, which is super cool. They have a Discord server. You can chat with the founder. He's super cool. He's out of Australia. They got a support team in there. They give very personalized customer support. I am a maniac for customer support. I value it very highly in every company that I run and every company that I give my money to. And honestly, I've been super impressed so far, being able to chat directly with the founder on all sorts of different issues. So super cool. So once I had email marketing solved, I still wasn't out of the woods on the question of like, do I need to use HubSpot or not, right? I had to figure out the CRM side of things. And that was when I discovered Attio. It was kind of the missing link for me to plug this whole system in. Now, I'll tell you what I like. Like, I've been, like I mentioned before, I've been a HubSpot customer. I've been in some larger organizations, been on their enterprise plan. Really big fan, and honestly, like they say, game recognizes game. Like, HubSpot's really good at the expansion revenue game. I just didn't want to play it with my money this time. So Attio is interesting, and the thing that I like is that they have features that are only available on the enterprise plan in HubSpot, and they make them available further down the plan stack, specifically custom objects. Because here's the rub, right? Like, I want to use a CRM the right way this time out, which is a 360-degree view of the customer. I think a lot of the time we set up CRMs and they're just a glorified Kanban board to manage a sales pipeline, and that's all we end up using it for. And you don't actually, like, after the sale, start sending data about product usage back into the CRM and use it to manage your renewal opportunities and your retention and stuff like that. I really wanted to try to get all the information into one place. In order to do that at a level that makes sense, you really need to be able to control the data structure. So in Attio, what's really interesting is you can set up custom objects however you want. And if you're a database nerd like me, you can actually set up the different relations on like what they belong to and how they relate to each other, one-to-one or one-to-many or many-to-many. Like you can define all the relationships. You can go pretty deep if you want to. And so like for instance, I've got a payments object, and I haven't set this up yet. I mean, we're a brand new company, but I did enough to make sure I could do it, right? Where I can set up a payments object, which belongs to people and companies. And then every time a customer makes a payment in Stripe, I can send that data back to the CRM. So in the CRM, I can get the lifetime value of the customer. That's pretty cool. I was pretty happy with that. But there's something else that I did with this thing that has already saved me the same amount of money that this thing cost me. I had to make a hire. And usually when you make a hire, you set up a little job board, you get an applicant tracking system and all that kind of stuff. I was able to set that up right here in Attio, and I'll show you the screen. Like all it was a derivative of the people table, and you can set up these different lists and set up list attributes and deal stages on the lists and all this kind of stuff. So I was able to just set up my talent pipeline. You see like application received, screenings, predictive index assessments, interviews, test projects, the whole 9 yards. All the way through, I was able to run this hiring process completely out of my CRM without it muddying the water on the sales stuff. And it worked like a charm, and hire got made, and we're all good. So I mean, a normal ATS is gonna cost you somewhere between 50 and a few $100 depending on which one you buy. So it's already put me in the black on the purchase, which is pretty sweet. All right, so that covers the revenue stack, right? It covers the marketing website, the analytics, the email automation, and our sales CRM. Now we're gonna kind of flip-flop to the back of the house, and we'll talk about the ops and finance stack that we use. And it starts off with storing information. A couple of these are gonna be industry standard tools, and this is one of them. We use Notion. It stores all the knowledge inside of our company, all the playbooks, the SOPs, the notes, but I also use it for my personal note-taking, which is interesting because that one gets a little nerdy, and I'll give you a test drive of it here in a sec. But what you can see on the screen is our company hub. So we just try to keep everything to one page as best we can. I got to start here with all our big picture stuff, like our values and our customer description, the weekly updates that I post, and then just our playbooks right down here on the right-hand side. Again, we keep our structure on everything very, very simple. We've got stuff that pertains to everyone, stuff that pertains to revenue, to media, to product and engineering, to ops. That's how we break it down. It doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. So that's the team hub and where we keep the company stuff. But what I think is really cool about this is what I do on the personal side. So I do track all my tasks and projects and stuff like that, but I also track all of my notes, and this is what's really neat. So there's this magical app that most people I still don't think have heard of, which is crazy to me. It's called Readwise, and if you think about it like a hub and spoke model, Readwise sits in the center and it connects to all sorts of different things. So I've got Readwise hooked up to my Kindle, I've got it hooked up to a Chrome extension, I've got it hooked up to Twitter, and anytime I like make a highlight in my Kindle or bookmark a tweet or highlight something in my browser, it syncs down to Readwise, and then Readwise will organize it and push it into my Notion. So you can see here, like every book that I've read on my Kindle and any highlight that I've made is saved right in here. I can open up this book, amp it up, awesome book by the way, and everything that I highlighted from reading that book is in here, and it's all searchable, which is super cool. I've got that for every book I've ever read on a Kindle. You can do the same thing with your tweets. So it organizes them by author, right? Like Greg Eisenberg can pull this up. He's a lot of great product stuff. And then right here, every single tweet I've ever bookmarked from Greg is sitting right here in a notes file, fully searchable, retained. I can use it in content. I can use it for research, for my own work, whatever I'm doing. So Notion goes a lot deeper than just writing playbooks, and if you lean into it for personal productivity as well, having your personal stuff and your business stuff in the same area is a freaking weapon. It is so helpful. I'm a huge Notion nerd. All right, so if we got Notion for our information, the other thing we got to do is figure out how to communicate. We're a remote team, and texting each other all day probably has a shelf life, and it's not going to work that well. In every company I've ever run, we've used Slack for our team chat, and it was really interesting. When we started Precision, I kind of had this aversion to using Slack again. I just felt like it was this constant freaking distraction and notifications everywhere and all this stuff. And I went and I looked at like 4 or 5 other alternatives to using Slack. And I really wanted to love them, but they just weren't as good. That's what it came down to. They weren't as user-friendly. My team wasn't loving them as much. We weren't communicating as often as we normally would. So I gotta be honest with you, once I bought Slack and loaded it up, I was actually kind of impressed, and they got some new functionality, which I really liked as well. The first thing about the notifications, it's a lot about how you use it. There's a really interesting article, I can link it up in the description. It was from Buffer like a bunch of years ago. They wrote it's like the Buffer's 10 commandments of Slack, but one of them was basically when it comes to notifications, like manage your own shit, right? Turn your notifications off when you need to turn them off. You can set up different notification structures where it'll only actually ping you with a notification if someone tags you with your name, or you can set that by different channels and prioritize them. It's pretty interesting if you just take some responsibility over setting up the notifications the right way. So that was the first part. But the other thing that I thought was interesting, I'd never really used Slack workflows before. And I'll give you an example on the screen of how we use them now. So we've got this concept in our company, I learned from Dan Martell a few years ago, called a 131. Anytime someone's trying to figure out the solution to a problem, usually I'm gonna ask them, hey, what's your 131? And what that is it's one problem, right? So you figure out very clearly in a few sentences what's the problem you're trying to solve. You come up with 3 viable options, and then you provide one recommendation at the end of which of the 3 options you think is the right solution. And so if you check out Slack right here, I actually built this little bot, right? This little workflow bot where I can click 131 and it pops up this little pop-up and helps people figure out exactly how to put this thing together. So you can write what the problem is, solution, 1, 2, 3, pick from the drop-down list which one you think is the recommendation, and then justify why you think it's the recommendation. You hit submit, and it posts it right in the channel. So I mean, being able to set stuff up like that to give just a little bit of structure to the way that we work is super, super valuable to me. And honestly, I was pretty impressed by it. All right, next up on the operation stack is something called Linear. Now, engineering teams love Linear. I'm a big freaking nerd. I love Linear too. It's really, really wonderful for like creating software specifications, setting up the pipeline for the software development lifecycle, managing your engineering teams. The other thing that I love is that it's, in my opinion, the best tool to run the shape-up product management methodology right out of the box. It's got baked-in functionality to set up these things called cycles, right? Like the whole concept of shape up is that you work in a cycle, which is a fixed length period of time similar to a sprint, and then each cycle is followed by a cooldown period where you can just like pick up work on whatever you want, kill some tech debt, right? Whatever you feel called to do. So you can set your cycle duration, right? If you want to do like shape up out of the box, it would be a 6-week cycle with a 2-week cooldown. Set when the cycles start, how many cycles in the future you should create. And then you can also set rules around them, like whether or not every issue has to belong to a cycle, and so on and so forth. So I thought it was really cool. Like, you can do this in other project management tools. You can probably do this in things like Jira or ClickUp, but there is a big benefit to speed and having some structure and some opinions. And that's the thing that I like about Linear, is that it's actually pretty opinionated in like, hey, this is the way we think you should be managing your software product. The other interesting thing about it, which a lot of people might think is crazy, is we don't just use this to manage our software engineering. We actually use this to run our media operation too. Like you can see on the screen here, this is all the social media content that we produce, our LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, and we've got this entire like 3-week-long production pipeline, and it's all managed out of Linear projects, right? So let me show you. We can pull this up, and you can see, oops, I gotta clean some stuff up here. But you can see that each project starts on a 1-week delay, and we've got these milestones when production should be complete, when refinement like editing should be complete, and then when all the content from that week is published. And so we know that like week 1 we're starting to produce, week 2 we're editing, week 3 is when it leaves the building. We have a project template and we create this for every single week, and then we just manage the issues right out of Linear. So super cool, it gives me everything I need at a glance to kind of manage this process and work with my team. All right, so the last couple of tools that I'm gonna talk about today are all about finance and banking. And a lot of the time that's like our least favorite stuff to deal with because it's not as fun as building products or doing marketing. But man, I'll tell you what, it causes you a world of hurt when it's messed up. So the first one is Mercury Bank. I love modern banking because I feel like sometimes it can be really hard to find. Remember, even just like 5 or 6 years ago in my first company, we were like struggling. We had to go to the bank and like get credit cards. They'd mail them to us and do all this crazy stuff. Mercury makes things so freaking simple, and I just love it, right? Like for instance, I can issue virtual credit cards to anyone on my team. You can set individual limits on the cards, and then I can also restrict what the cards can be used for based on like merchant category or even down to specific vendors. So for instance, like if I wanted to give my media guy a credit card that he could only use for ad spend, then I could set it up that way and it would restrict only to those things, and my man could not buy a cup of coffee on the media card. That's it. It's really nice. You can set up exactly whatever rules you need, but you can issue the cards instantly. And that's what I love. So issue the card, you put it in one pass in a password manager, good to go. I can turn it off, I can cycle it whenever. Let me give you a little pro tip here. If you've run a company for a couple of years, you know what I'm about to explain. You get all of these little SaaS tools, all these little subscriptions over time. And then you go and you look at your books and you're like, what the hell is this? What is that 30 bucks over there? What's that tool for 99 bucks? Oh, did Jimmy used to use that? No, I think it was Susan. Oh, but it was actually Mike who doesn't work here anymore. Oh my God, it's such a freaking headache. And nobody ever considers, if you have a virtual card, you can just turn the card off and issue a new card. So inside of Mercury, I actually have a card called 2025 SaaS Spend, and every SaaS tool or any recurring item that we sign up for in calendar year 2025 goes on this card. And when I'm getting down to year-end planning and moving into 2026, I'm gonna take all the mission critical stuff that I need, change it to my 2026 SaaS card, and then in January, I'm turning the 2025 card off, and all that weird like orphan spend that just sips away at your profits, it's gonna leave. It's gonna be so easy. All right, the last piece of software on this list is something that everyone loves to hate, which is accounting software. Now, most of the stuff that's out there has been around for 10, 15 years. It's crazy slow and honestly just pretty uninspiring to use. And so naturally I was looking for an alternative, and this one's like a bet for me because I haven't really started using it yet because we're so brand new, but it's called Puzzle. It's puzzle.io. And honestly, if I had to describe it so far, I would just say it's accounting software that seems like it doesn't suck, which is super wonderful. Like it's got a modern UI, it's fast to load, it does smart things like looks at your historical spend and gives you some like rudimentary runway and burn rate and cash flow forecasting and stuff like that. So I don't really know how this one's gonna work out yet because we haven't really started using it, but man, it can't be worse than the status quo, so it'll probably be all right. I'm stoked to figure it out as we start to earn some money over the next few months. So that's what I got for you guys today on software tools. Now look, if you're anything like me, you start buying a bunch of software tools and you start to get a little stressed out on like, am I spending too much money? What's this gonna do to my profitability and my cash flow? The way that I reconcile that personally is with a tool called a 13-week cash flow forecast. If you wanna see how I do it, I've got a template. The link to it is right here in the description, so you can click it, drop in your email address, and I'll send it over. Outside of that, just subscribe to the channel so you don't miss my next video, and I'll see you soon. Peace.